Hey guys, it's Ashley, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Aurora Rising by Kristoff and Amie Kaufman. Before I get into anything, I just want to point out the tagline for this book because it's so good. They're not the heroes we wanted. They're just the ones we could find. If you've been with me for a while, or even a little bit at all, you probably know that I am a huge, massive fan of Kristoff and Amie Kaufman's previous series, Illuminae, and the Illuminae Files. They are like some of my favorite books that I've ever read, having since started this channel, and I have so many videos up about them, so I will go ahead and leave some of those down below if you want to know more about their previous work. But Aurora Rising, if you don't already know, is their newest book that they just released this early May. I just now got around to reading it, which is actually good timing for me because recently I've been taking so long to read new books, so proud of myself for this one. The premise of this book is basically that we follow this group of people who are in a space academy. So we are in the Aurora Space Academy, and the year is like 2038 or something. No, 2380. Way off. It's kind of like this ragtag group of people whose leader is named Tyler Jones, and he is like this golden boy in the academy. He is known as the perfect grades, perfect smile, perfect dimples, just all around golden boy. He's been spending the last 5 years of his life to train to become a alpha and the leader of a squad, and so these squads then get to go on missions to go save the universe and whatnot, and to keep all of the different alliances that they have with the different alien species they've discovered since traveling space neutral. They are like the neutral space alliance among all of the aliens and people in space. So his dream is to become an alpha, to lead his own squad, and to pick the very best people in the draft, which is coming up. He gets a little antsy right before, so he goes out on a ship and gets sucked into the fold, which is kind of like a black hole of sorts, and ends up finding a ship with this girl on it, who's been in cryo sleep for over 200 years and has a huge role to play in all of the action to come. Then when he comes back, he realizes he missed the draft and he gets stuck with the dregs of the academy, and so he's got this ragtag squad that he never in a million years would have put together, and they have to try to figure out how to save the universe. It is so funny, so good. At times it is a little bit confusing, but it is the closest thing that I've ever found to a Guardians of the Galaxy in book form, and it is chef Italian kiss. So good. So good. I kind of just kicked my camera, so if the angle shifted at all, that's why. We do get introduced to a few new alien species that we were not familiar with in Illuminae, which, speaking of, I meant to check to see what year Illuminae was set in. Okay, so Illuminae was set in 2575. So I don't know if they had discovered the alien species that they do in this one and this one. No, wait, 2575 is later than this. So this book takes place so much later. Oh my goodness. So does that mean whatever happens in this book is going to end up creating the environment that this book takes place in? What? So like I said, there are these new alien species. There are the Petrascan and the Sildrathi, and they've got very unique characteristics. It was really interesting how Kristoff and Amie Kaufman were able to create these alien species with these very distinct characteristics. Like they're very different, not only in the way that they look, but also in the way that they act and their traditions and their social norms and things. There was a lot of thought put into that. It had a big part in the book, but it wasn't what mainly happened in the book, so I really appreciated that, especially if they're going to build on that foundation for the next book or two, so I'm really excited to see where that takes us. There's also this unexpected romance that happens between two people in this book, and it's wonderful, and if you know what I'm talking about, I'm so excited to see how it progresses. Okay, I'm gonna put this in the best way possible when I say this. It reminded me of something in a Sarah J. Maas book put into a sci-fi environment. So I'm very excited. That's a really weird and also interesting mashup of things that was happening in my head and in this book. So I'm very, very excited to see what's gonna happen there. I think I've shared enough non-spoilery things. If that does not get you wanting to read this book or interested in it, at least I'm hoping that I can make you more interested in it if you talk to me down below. So please let me know what you think. But for now, if you haven't read this book yet, I'm gonna go into some spoilers, so go ahead and click out and come back when you've read it. So I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye, non-spoilery people. So as per usual with my reviews recently, I had neglected to take any sort of note whatsoever when it came to this book, so we're just gonna be flying by the seat of my pants, and it's totally fine. You know, it's fine. So starting at the very beginning, something that I really loved about this book was the beginning, as I just said. The very opening chapters were super interesting to me because they were different than anything else in the entire book. I just realized I accidentally put this book in upside down in the dust jacket, so that's great. 1 second. It's very back and forth, past, present, and I really liked it. It starts off with Tyler, as we know, and he's switching back and forth between what previously happened before he went out on the ship and what's currently happening now that he's on the ship, in the fold, on the Hatfield, trying to rescue Aurora. And it's really interesting because this is also mirroring what Aurora is feeling in her chapter right afterward, where she's in her cryo sleep, she's being woken up, she doesn't understand what's happening, to her memories of before she went into cryo and what she was there for and her family. I really love action scenes where short bursts are happening at once, and so you're very back and forth with your head. I really love that because it really immerses you in the action, and I think that they did a really good job in those first few chapters. Granted, they were very confusing to read about, jumping in that quickly, but once you understood and got a grasp of what was happening within like page 2, it like slowly began to make more sense, and you were very like, wow, this thing just starts up right away. I want to talk about the individual characters in this group because I feel like that's one of the things that we focus on the most when we read the summary, or when I give a summary myself, it's always like, you know, a ragtag group of individuals. So I want to talk a little bit about them. I really liked Tyler and Scarlett as siblings in this story. I thought that their connection in the squad worked really well together. They're fraternal twins, and their father and their mother are both gone, and their father was this big war hero who is well known, and so they're trying to follow in his footsteps, or at least Tyler is. Scarlett, I don't think, really wanted to do this, if I'm remembering correctly, but she did it because her brother did. But I just really love how like they always take charge. They just work well together, and they've meshed this team well together, and Scarlett, such a badass. I really liked in Scarlett's point of views how she was going through her list of ex-boyfriends and figuring out which ones to get rid of and which ones to give second chances to. So great. Then we have Kat, who is the ace, or the pilot. She is like a long childhood best friend of Tyler and Scarlett. They have this whole backstory of how Tyler said something to her in kindergarten and she smashed a chair over his head. But they do have a connection because they have this unrequited love for one another, and neither of them can act on it because they're supposed to be working together, and it's just this really awkward situation every time you get a Kat chapter, and she's like pining for him, but she knows she can't have him, and then they keep thinking back to that like moment where they got tattoos and they passed out in bed and they slept together, and it was just real awkward a lot of the time. The romantic tension in those scenes, very high. Then you have Finian, who is the Batrascan of the team. So he is where we first learn about this like alien race that we have a mutual alliance with. As far as I can remember, they live underground on Trask. They have like completely white skin, white hair, everything, and then like these really dark eyes, or these white eyes. But Finian suffered from the Lysergia plague, which is what Ella suffered from in Gemina. You can tell that I'm just like flying off my pants here. If I had all of this written down, this would have been a lot cleaner of a video, but I'm sorry that didn't happen. Anyways, they just look very different from us, and they have really big families, so they can, whenever they catch up with a relative, they're always like talking about how they're related and what their families are up to these days. So it was so funny when Finian was getting them a place to sleep on the like pirate ship world kind of thing. And he went to his cousin Dariel, and he was like, yeah, we have, you know, our like third cousin on my third mom's side, 2 years back did this. It was so funny. They have this like tradition where the family comes and helps them build the home because it shows that you trust the family enough to be living in your home. Because on Trask, I think the winds, or yeah, I think it's the winds, are so strong that like if you don't have a solid foundation for your home, then you'll just die. So you have to put enough trust into your family and have enough familial like love and hope to know that they're going to protect you by building your house. So I thought that was really sweet. It shows the kind of person that Finian is underneath all of the inherent sarcasm that is constantly thrown at us from his mouth. Also, because of the Lysergia plague that he suffered from, he is kind of paralyzed, so he uses like this exosuit to help him move, which really cool. He's like this tech guy and he's like half robot basically, and I really, really loved him. Then we have Zila, who is the brainiac of the group, and she is so interesting because we don't know anything about her. I'm hoping that we'll learn more in the next book because we really don't know a lot about her, and I really liked how in the beginning her chapters were literally just one line. So this is the first chapter that she ever has. It's chapter 4, and it literally just says, my current situation could be adequately described as suboptimal. And then that's it. Something happened in her past where like she doesn't have the emotional connection to people like she would normally, which is why she is so interested in science and math. It's something to like channel her energy into and not having to think about what the hell happened that we don't know about. So like there was one scene where she thought that if Aurora was sleeping, whatever has taken hold of her would come forward and they would figure out where to go next. And so she just kind of like shoots her with a stun gun without really like telling anybody or thinking about it. And it's a lot of stuff happens at that point. She's just this super small girl and she's just so smart, but she doesn't really, like I said, have that emotional connection to people, so I'm very excited to see where she's gonna go. So the last member of the actual squad is Cal, and Cal is a Sildrathi, who is another alien race that we learn about in this story that we don't have very good relationships with. Kind of have like half of a mutual alliance, but then one of their tribes, the Warbringers, maybe, if that's what they're called, I can't remember, kind of was like, F you, and then kind of like killed a star and then killed a bunch of Sildrathi, which honestly I think was kind of pointless to their cause because they killed their own people just because they did something they didn't want to do, but you know, we're not going to talk about that now. They destroyed a bunch of Sildrathi, and now they are on the hunt for humans. Yay! Cal is a Warbringer, but he is not part of the Star Slayers group, or whatever you want to call it. He has his own sets of morals and beliefs. He joins the Aurora Academy to try to make a better world, that kind of thing. But he is a Warbringer, so he still does have this enemy within, or whatever they want to call it, which is kind of just this like inner angry guy that comes out when he is in a tough situation, and it really helps him to fight and to use his adrenaline in a good way. But the Sildrathi are really strange. They've got really tan skin and bleach white silver pale hair. So Aurora always calls Cal Legolas, and Cal is like, what the fuck is that? And they also have violet eyes. They also have this tradition where they don't like to be touched. Not really a tradition, but more of like a social norm kind of thing. They don't like to be touched. They think of touch as intimate. The one scene in the book where Tyler has to kiss him, create a diversion when they're in a tough spot. So good. But they also experience this thing called the pull, which is where I started drawing like similarities to all of the Sarah J. Maas books, because Sildrathi can have mates. It's like the person that they are meant to be with for the rest of their lives, the rest of eternity. And so he starts feeling this pull toward Aurora, who is a 237-year-old human. And he's like, what? So in comes Aurora. She's the girl that Tyler saves on the ship in Hadfield, and we find out all of this stuff toward the end, that like she's been taken over by the Eshraven or the Eshvaren, who are the like very ancient old like this old civilization, died out and gone extinct by now, but she's taken over by them because they want her to discover that their old enemy, which is this like weird plant thing, I don't know, is coming back and is trying to take over the world. They've taken hold of Aurora and they're guiding the squad in that direction so that they can try to save the world. We find out this whole thing with like Aurora back in like the year 21 something was being sent to Octavia 3, but then turns out Octavia 3 is uninhabitable. So she wasn't technically sent there, but she was, because turns out it was invaded by this alien plant thing that's trying to take over the world, like I just said, but nobody really knew about it because everybody was banned from going in that sphere. I don't know, it's this really big confusing story, and since you're at this part in the video, you already know what's happening, but like, what? She has absolutely no idea what's going on. All she knows is that this ancient civilization is guiding her in the direction of saving the world, and there's not really much more that she can do than that. We find out that all of her family that had been sent to Octavia 3 previously have been kind of like parasitically taken over by this plant, fungus, alien life form thing. They've infiltrated the GIA, which is like the CIA, but for space. Her dad was like the leader or something, but he's been taken over by this plant. I don't know. All of the descriptions of their like parasitic bodies with like the fungus and the moss growing up their faces and the flowers in their eyes. It was just kind of freaky, so I kind of skipped over that a little bit. It definitely was not going in the direction that I had imagined at all in the beginning, so I was very confused throughout most of this story, but it actually ended up being pretty interesting, and I'm actually really glad that I didn't really guess what was going on, because where's the fun in that? So I'm really excited to see what's gonna happen in the next book, especially because, do you remember the woman who sent Aurora onto their spaceship to begin with? The Batrascan, whatever her name was, Distol or something. Does she know what's happening? Does Adams know what's happening? I'm so confused by this. The entire time Tyler is continuing on with this mission because Adams told him to believe and Distol told him to do it, and you know, do they actually know what's happening? Because if they know what's happening, why send Tyler's team to do this? Like, they have to have some kind of a role. They have to know something. The people of Aurora Academy, they have to. I don't understand what their role is in all of this, so I'm very eager to find that out because that's very confusing to me. Also, I just want to see more of Aurora and Cal because she's willing to give him a chance, even though he's this alien species that she's only known for like 4 days, and then turns out, oh my god, you think that I'm your mate? What is happening? What? I didn't even know you existed before 5 days ago. I had such a good time reading this story. Whenever I wasn't reading it, I just kept thinking about it and thinking about what was going to happen. I really just wanted there to be some kind of a scene with Cal and Aurora because we were introduced to this idea of this pull very, very early on in this story, and yet we barely had a Cal chapter. Like every 7 or 8 chapters, we'd have a Cal chapter, and it wouldn't have anything to do with, it had like 1 paragraph about Aurora, and then he'd be like, no, I can't think about that, and then nothing after that. So I want to know what's going to happen. I want to know about that badly because we didn't see a lot of it in this book. We saw a lot of Kat and Tyler, but none of them, so I'm ready for it. Also, Cal just needs a happy ending. I love Cal, but I have this sick feeling that he's gonna die, and I'm not ready for that. Also, who here wants Finn and Scarlet to get together? Because that is a thing that is happening in my head and I want it to be real. Anyway, okay, I have about 30 minutes of footage to get through, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop here. I know I didn't really go through the plot a whole lot, but honestly, like, this book was just the characters anyway, so like, it's fine. I'm hoping that now we've been introduced to these characters, and now that we know more about them and their characteristics and their qualities and things, that we'll get more into what the hell is actually happening to the universe in the next book, because I'm still very confused and I want to know how they're going to end up saving this thing. If you have any thoughts or feelings or predictions that you want to share, please leave them down below. But that is going to be it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you later. Goodbye.